All right, welcome to the Winner's Circle, a new show right here on the OSGA YouTube channel. I'm Ross Benjamin. You're used to seeing me. You're not used to seeing my co-host, but you're going to be used to seeing him going forward. And my co-host, veteran Las Vegas handicapper, Chip Chirimbes. Chip, welcome aboard, my man.
Thank you, Ross. I'm looking forward to this. I think we're going to do some great things here.
Chipper, you've been red hot. I know that because we discuss games every week. Now we're just going to do them on air, right? So no need to keep us on the phone all the time.
That's right. Actually, it's a plus and a minus. I get a plus, and I don't have to deal with you on the phone. But it's easy. We should have some good stuff ready here. I mean, we discuss this every week and about what's going on in the games, and maybe to give the public an insight as to how we see a game and where we come from.
So what we're going to do early in the week, folks, is we're going to take some early looks at college football, specifically today. We're going to take a look. We're going to be back on Wednesday. Normally our schedule is going to be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. But Chipper's got a procedure he's got to go through tomorrow. We're not going to get into detail about that. Let's just say that we're veterans, and it comes with the veteran age. So in any event, we're going to be discussing college football early looks, specifically 5 games that are in the national spotlight this week. And then on Wednesday, we'll touch upon some early looks in the NFL. But before we get to that, Chip, tell the folks a little bit about your vast history in the sports handicapping industry.
Well, Ross, I'm going to try and wrap this up as quick as I can because it's almost been 40 years.
Take your
time. I was a teacher in a high school, and I had a partner, and we used to look for an anomaly in the line in the games, and we used to bet one game a day. And as a teacher, the bookmakers in town used to say to me, okay, Chipper, who's your A play? As opposed to A, B, or C. So that's
where you got that from.
Yeah, that's where we got it from. And so we would come out with only one play. But the problem was trying to market only one play. There were very few high rollers only want one game. People like the action. They want a little bit more on opinions. So we've expanded, of course, now to have 3 or 5 plays on a Saturday or Sunday. But I left teaching because I was making and betting and gambling so much more money on the side than I was teaching that I thought I had a future. My father was a printer, so I used his facilities for a year, and I printed a newsletter, and he didn't like the idea that I was going to quit teaching, so I ended up having actually to go to an outside source. And, the old school, Ross, like you even said, people ask you what you do, and they say, oh, you're a bookie.
Yep.
And my parents felt the same way. But anyway, I started a TV show in Manhattan, a live show, much as we have right now, and it took off. I went on with Dan Rather on the CBS Evening News, and I won the contest, the Las Vegas Hilton contest, and have been involved in a lot of other things out here. It's a grind. It's a hard job. People think, it's like they say about poker. It's a hard way to make an easy living. And I know you put in plenty of hours because I talk to you every day during the week, and for the most part. And it's a grind, and I think there's an awareness. We have an awareness of the numbers, and we have an awareness that the bookmaker's not exactly your friend, and he's not giving you any gifts, and he's not saying, oh, here, get great value on these games. And if you do think you're getting great value, I think you should pay closer attention to what we're doing here, because we're going to make you understand the difference between being suckered into a play and making a better wager.
Yeah, I always say, Chipper, my cliche I've used for years is think like a bookmaker.
Yeah.
Right. Not getting into my past history before I got into this industry, but let's just say I have a little more understanding on the other side of the table than most in this industry do.
Sure.
Having said that, it goes hand in hand to what you just said, Chip. They're not that nice. They're not that gracious. When you see something that smells like a rat, it usually is, And if you see something that looks too easy, Chip, most times in non-sports betting, it is,
Well,
I should say. Yes.
And the other thing I want to point out, Ross, and I don't mean to cut the step on you.
No, it's okay.
But we're in this together to make money. We're not here to have fun or to bet a game just because the game's on TV or because the game is out there. We don't have to. We look past that. That's why we said the A play. We're only looking for that one game. That game that's going to make me a winner. I mean, I'm still in contact with my ex-partner, and I'm telling you, he only makes 5 to 7 plays in an entire week. and yet he's looking at the board every day. I know he's passing tonight, as you and I would like to, and it's a profitable. It's very difficult to beat the bookmaker, and you have to have discipline and consistency. And if you're going to bet 8-10 games on a day, I think you're shooting yourself in the foot. And I think that type of player, Ross, we really can't help. I mean, when I had that one play a day and I give him my one play and he's parlaying it with 4 other games that he likes, you're defeating the purpose. So, that's why I've expanded it a little bit. But you and I both know we think those teasers and those parlays are come get me sucker bets. And they're offering them to you so they can make more money.
Yeah, we were talking off air. I ran it through I have an extensive software program, and home favorites of 6.5 or less in the NFL, which a lot of people like to tease down in a 6-point teaser, so they only have to win the game straight up. Well, if they won the game straight up, you would have covered 81% of the time anyway, and that's just one half of the teaser, right? Chipper?
That's an amazing stat. And like we said, when you bet a teaser, it's one bet, but you still have to win 2 wagers.
Win the other way. Yeah.
To collect once, and you're collecting half as much to win 2 games. I'm not a teaser fan. No. I don't even like parlaying at all. But sometimes, you get a little wild hair and you want to gamble. I mean, it's difficult to have that discipline where you don't gamble. And we don't believe in taking shots. I mean, if we're down 2-3 games on a Sunday, we're not going to give,
You're
give
not
you a super
mode.
game.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Exactly.
So, it's a difficult industry to make money in, and the fact that we've done it over a long period of time I think is a testament to what we do.
I think it speaks volumes because you have to be very disciplined. You have to have a strict money management plan. No chasing when you're waiting. Go ahead.
And I'm sorry, but I think you have to also adjust as things change. Like we said, now the total numbers are absolutely like 10, 12 points higher than the average of 15 years ago. So the rules change. We have to adjust our viewpoints and how we handicap and how we come up with winners. And we've both done it pretty successfully, I think.
I think so too, Chip. I agree. Yeah. We're talking about standalone games, and I know this is a college football show, but we've had long discussion on another show earlier that we were on, and us off air as well. I'm not a proponent of just because a game is a standalone game that you should use it or you should give it to your clients. My feeling is this: if you took a game like tonight and put it on the Sunday card, would you really use it? Think about that. You know what I mean? Right now, it's like this game tonight, I'm probably going to take a pass, Chip. I mean, I can't lay that big number on the road with Tampa Bay, even though they're a much superior team on paper in the eye test. The Giants, as you alluded to on an early show, terrible home underdog since 2018. And if you take the Giants, you're asking a bad team to do good things for you, and that's a cardinal rule I don't like to go against. So again, I know you've been really, really good on these standalone.
Yes. Yeah.
So how do you feel about like when you're on a hot streak with standalone games and you get a game like this?
Well, last night I actually, in a standalone situation, I had the loser. I had Dallas in 2 quarterback fumbles, 1 return for a touchdown, the other on the 7-yard line with the difference as far as the points concerned. But that's the way it is in this business, and we understand that. But if that underdog had covered last night, I might have considered giving Tampa Bay because of those incredible, like we said, angles and trends on this game. The Giants as underdogs at home, Ross, they've only covered 3 of 16. They've only covered 3 of the last 26 at home overall. And we've got a real hot Tom Brady coming into this game. Last 5 games, first 2 games, Ross, you and I talked, said, gee, maybe he slipped a little. Yeah. Last 5 games, 15 TDs, only 1 INT, the 3rd highest scoring team in the league, and they're 6-0-1 on the road. So I had to throw this game out because I know the public money and the sentiment is all on Tampa Bay, and you and I think, would rather gravitated toward it against that than toward that. Yeah. And I had passed this. This is the first Monday night game that I could remember in 3-4 years where I didn't post. I didn't put out a side in the game, and I love these Thursday nights and Sunday night games because the action is concentrated, and I've been very, very fortunate. Yesterday's loss sprouts me to 15-7, and that's still 68%
on the standalone games. 15. Right
in the NFL, in the NFL games. Yeah. So it's I couldn't pull the trigger tonight. I really couldn't. And I'm not trying to hedge for anybody out there. I was ready to, I really would have loved to put the Giants down coming from New York. But, Ross, we got a quarterback here. They call him Daniel Jones. I call him Davy Jones's locker, this guy, because he gives the ball up so much. I mean, he's had a turnover in every single NFL start by interception or fumble, and that's at least one. I think he's got 19 NFL starts and 39 turnovers.
Yeah.
I know he's under a lot of pressure, Ross, and sometimes he has to throw it up to just try and make something happen. We used to talk about Joe Namath always doing that and having so many interceptions. I'm not comparing him to Joe Namath. Don't get me wrong.
But Joe Namath had a couple better receivers to work with.
Yeah.
He had a better team around him,
But the scenario is that he's trying to force things, and he's still young. But it looks like he's got good potential, though, Ross. Like, he can throw the ball. He throws the ball a really good catchable pass. I think he's got good instincts. It's just, like I said, a number of times he's given the ball up when he shouldn't. Tampa comes into the top-rated defense. Really tough call. I mean, I really tough call. I just couldn't get the Giants out. I couldn't give it out.
It's what we call an uncomfortable play that you need to make once in a while, but you have to draw the line between uncomfortable play and not very smart. And I just don't see it being an intelligent pick either way. Of course, you'll get the result bettors that will jump in and comment. I had Tampa Bay and they won by 27. I had the Giants and they won outright. Well, do it like we do it. Put our ass on the line and put this out before the game starts and not comment it after the game starts.
And Ross, I'm sorry, what makes it an even bigger dilemma for me is the Giants have always had great success as a team against the Patriots when Brady was there. Yeah. And they've also had success against this Tampa Bay team without Brady. They were 7-1 the last 8 against the number. So here we go with these angles and trends again, which are pointing to the Giants, but we know how bad they are. And I'm passing tonight, and I know you feel the same way.
Yeah, you speak about Daniel Jones. I actually like him a little bit, Chip. He has turned the ball over, but most of those turnovers are via losing fumbles. And that's came because he's got blindsided, lack of protection, having to hold on to the ball too long because his wide receivers don't get separation for him. But you can make a case that his strongest game in his career came last year at Tampa. Now, in which the Giants won that game by an upset. Now, there's a big difference between Brady at quarterback and Jameis Winston. I get that. The other part of the equation that I don't know if a lot of people realize, and I've told you this a couple times, is people don't realize how tough it's been to run the ball against Tampa. Even last year, they were number 1 in the NFL by a long shot as far as stopping the run. And they're number 1 again this year. The Giants losing Saquon Barkley, and now they're going to go with their backup running backs and try to run against this Tampa defense. And then if you start to get one-dimensional, I think that's part of Daniel Jones' problem too, Chipper. He's constantly having to play from behind. You know what I mean? So now the offense becomes predictable. The defensive line on the opposing side could pin their ear back. And it makes his job a lot more difficult. I'd like to see this kid a couple years down the road with a better shooting cast and make a better judgment on him then. Okay, enough of the NFL. Well, we did want to talk about a couple games yesterday in the NFL, what we learned. And I talked on a prior show, and I know that me and you fell with Baltimore yesterday. And I had mentioned to you, Chipper, I don't like to cry spilled milk, but Baltimore outgained Pittsburgh 475 to 221 in that game. Lamar Jackson, look, I'm going to go out on a limb. I think he's the most overrated reigning MVP quarterback that I've remembered. Okay, sure. And a lot of people are going to frown upon me saying that, Chip. But you know what? Until this guy shows me he could bring a team back from a deficit in the fourth quarter, bring a team back from more than a one-possession game, I'm not really sold on him. Because if you look at the games that Baltimore have lost, be it the playoffs or the regular season, which there haven't been many, right? But they even more so, they stick in your mind. He's been behind in those games, and he's not been able to bring his team back.
Ross, I just like I had mentioned before, I just don't think he's built for the NFL playoffs. When you've got these better defenses that are sitting there and can shut down one aspect of his game,
Yeah.
he can't throw the ball. He can throw the ball on the run on a broken play, and this is how he's been so successful. And if he ran for 1,000 yards, the guy's a quarterback. That's a very valuable stat right there. But when he comes against the big teams, like we said before, the Yankees are built to play in the home run derby. They're not built to play in the playoffs. And I think the same way about this Raven team with Jackson quarterbacking them. I think they're going to beat up on the little guy. They opened the season, I think it was 38-3 over Cleveland.
Yeah.
And when they get into real tough defensive teams that know how to run a scheme, even though they moved that ball, like you said, for over 400 yards and had a huge advantage, it comes down to a quarterback that can perform under pressure when it counts against the big guys, not give it up twice, dropping it inside the red zone, and not giving up a pick six. It's just I'm like you. I don't even think the jury's out on him. This is a guy like I'm like Pontius Pilate here today, Ross.
Oh, that's okay.
Him and Sam Darnold, I think, are well, he's much better than Sam Darnold in my mind, but the guys that just are all hype.
Yeah. And, Baltimore in general as a team, I mean, they, like you said, they've been beaten up on, the teams they're supposed to beat kind of thing.
Right.
And their MO is get the lead, run the ball down the other team's throat, which they have a very good running game, and play good defense, which their defense, their defense is good. I mean, let's not make a mistake about it. I mean, if you look at yesterday, they gave up 28 points, but just a little over 200 yards. So, yeah, again, you don't cry over a loss, even though we lost that game, but it's something to bring to the viewers and listeners' attention that sometimes you have to look beyond just a final score,
right.
Which brings me to this, Chip. Miami's win in 31-21 yesterday, 31-20, excuse me. Tua gets his debut start. You look at the final score and say, what a great move. Miami.
He was unbelievable.
Yeah, he was unbelievable. And what do we look when we look inside the numbers? What do we see, Chip? We see a quarter.
He had 8 first downs.
Yeah, 145 yards of total offense. He was 12 for 23 for 90 yards. And Miami had a fumble return touchdown, 78 yards for a touchdown, an 88-yard punt return, and the Rams turned the ball over 4 times and gave him short field. So, again, looking inside the numbers, I don't agree with that move. I think it's going to bite him in the behind.
I agree.
I think that when you're 3-3 and you're still in playoff contention and your quarterback is a veteran and he's playing good, ultimately what you want to do with your first-round draft choice is let him sit and watch and learn. Now, if you were 1-5, 1-6 at the time, I get it.
Yep.
Let's get him on the field. Let's see what we have. Let's get him some reps. Let's get him some real live playing time. But that wasn't the case. I mean, I'm sure you agree with that, Chip.
Oh, the numbers, Ross, were incredible. They averaged 4 yards a pass attempt, 4 yards for pass attempt, and 2 yards per rushing attempt. This is an NFL team. Usually, if you're average 2 yards per rushing attempt, usually you'll have 240 yards passing. Or if you're one way or the other, there'll be something. They had nothing on either side of the ball, Ross, and the defense turned the trick. The Rams weren't able to overcome it. I mean, what the heck? They were 88, like you said, 88-yard punt return, 78-yard fumble return, and that was history. Once that happened, Miami's defense is good enough to shut down the Niners. They can shut down the Rams as well. So, Dolphins are something we're going to have to look at.
Yes, no doubt about it. I mean, I wrote an article earlier in the year that I predicted them to go over 7.5 wins, and I also predicted them in the first half of the year to keep an eye on them as an underdog. And I look prophetic now. But you know what? I did write that article. It has a timestamp on it. You can see at OSTA, which, by the way, we are on the OSTA YouTube channel. I'm Ross Benjamin, and my partner is a veteran Las Vegas handicapper, Chip Chirimbes, who used to make some appearances on CNN as well, right, Chip?
Sure, I did a 5.5-year stint. Every Friday, I would do a 12-minute segment on a Las Vegas update on where the action is going, where the money was going. And Ross, we got to cover things like the NASCAR and things along those lines, not just the professional sports. So I really enjoyed it. And when they made a change, Lou Dobbs moved into another area. And I actually had a woman come in who, you know how CNN is. And, of course, so I'm not a female. We're talking about a male genre, so I say. So my days were limited. I think I was there like for 3-4 weeks, and then that day I was no longer in need. But I had 5.5, 6 years, over 300 appearances. It was really enjoyable. It was great for the credibility, of course. And I also appeared with Dan Rather on a CBS Evening News a number of years ago when they had the NFL strike. And they came to me and said, "How did it affect your business?" I said, "What business?" It was like the court, the virus. Yeah.
That was an easy answer. That was sort of a no-brainer, for lack of a better phrase. But it should tell people, it should speak volumes to the listeners and viewers out there. And this was back in the 90s, I believe, right, Chip, when you were doing those appearances?
No, as a matter of fact, I was doing those appearances from 2000 to 2006. Okay. And 2007, and that's when Lou Dobbs left. Big Dallas Cowboy fan, and when I used to go to, and they used to send me, it was great because they'd send me to the Super Bowl site, and if I was in New York, I'd go to the studios, and he was a big Cowboy fan, and I used to send him all kinds of different notes about how these Cowboys stunk.
In any event, it was big news when a guy from our industry was put on national TV back then. It just didn't happen. To be in a well-respected environment like a CNN, even though, you'll get conservatives that'll say that's not a well-respected environment. But
it was different 10 years ago. As a matter of fact, I played golf this summer with the founder and the first CEO of CNN, not Ted Turner, the one who ran out of New York. And I said to him, "What's happened to your network?" And he goes, "It's not even news anymore." And that was a former CNN, the guy who was the head honcho. So he's out, he's gone, he's shaking his head as well. There's been big changes there since I maybe it was because I left, Ross.
There you go, man. They went to hell right after that, Yeah. Anyway, we got about 10 minutes left here in the show, so let's get right to Let's get right to the college football. Chipper, number 13 Michigan at number 23 Michigan at number 13 Indiana. That's hard to say when Michigan is a lower ranked team than Indiana is. And again, I go back to what I discussed with you last week about rankings meaning nothing, because here we are, the lower seeded team or lower ranked team on the road, Michigan Wolverines, as a 3.5, somewhere 3 favorite at Indiana. Indiana off to a quick 2-0 start, and Michigan coming off that upset loss is a huge three touchdown favorite. Chip, what's your thoughts early on?
Well, coming into this game, I'm shocked at the way Michigan was handled by Michigan State. We know Michigan State can't play. They got beat by Rutgers the week before, and that's the team Indiana beat last week. Their opening win over Penn State, everyone made a big story about it, but this game is like what you had talked about earlier, Russ. Check the numbers. They had 41 yards rushing. Penn State made 10 major errors, 10 penalties, 3 missed field goals, 4 turnovers, and they lost by 2 two-point conversions. But Indiana comes back and defeats that Rutgers team handily last week. And Rutgers had, of course, won their first Big Ten game in 22 tries,
Ross, something Michigan along those State, lines. Ironically.
Yeah, right. So, like you said, with the odds makers know more than the pollsters.
Absolutely.
We can go back to 2016 for that one. But just having Michigan favored here is telling me that Indiana is probably going to come to and beat it this year, but most likely their first loss is going to come this weekend.
And let's also keep in mind Rutgers beat Michigan State mostly because of 7 Michigan State turnovers in that game.
There you go.
So, there's an underlying factor there. And Indiana, in that win over Penn State, and me and you touched upon this numerous times, they were outgained by 250 yards in that game. So, all right, let's get to our next game. The world's largest cocktail party, Florida versus Georgia, game that's always played in Jacksonville, Florida, home of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Right now, again, 2 ranked teams, number 8 Florida against number 5 Georgia. Georgia 3.5-point favorite as we speak, Chip. And this is, to me, comes down to how Georgia's defense can handle Florida's offense, because one team's got a dynamic offense and a terrible defense in Florida, and one's got a terrific defense and a so-so offense in Georgia. Your early thoughts, Chip?
My early thoughts are Georgia coming up 4.5. I thought that was a bit strong because, like you said, this Georgia team it looks like sometimes they're just sleepwalking on offense. Ross, it doesn't even look like they're trying to do anything. Maybe they don't have the dynamic quarterback like some of the other Clemson or other big clubs out there. This Florida team is going to be very, very tough. And the fact that the fact that Georgia comes up 4.5 makes me think they think it's going to be a defensive game.
Yeah.
And because of the offense that Florida provides, and sooner or later this Florida defense is going to put it together somewhere, and because their competition level is too great, and their talent level is great as well. And kids will develop during the seasons, particularly at this age. You know that. I mean, how many times have we seen bowl games, Ross, where all of a sudden we'll look at a kid and he's a monster, and he said during the season, where was he? And he just developed as the year went on. So,
yeah, and that extra 3-4 weeks of practice sometimes at that time of year does wonders.
Oh, the adjustment seat. Go ahead.
Yep. But in any event, Florida coming off a 41-17 home win over Missouri, easy cover there as a 12-point favorite. The Georgia Bulldogs off a sleeper in a 14-3 win over Kentucky, who can't move the ball on Johns Hopkins if they played them. And Georgia 3-0, the last 3-0 straight up in ATS in the last 3 meetings in this series. And all I can say about the Georgia quarterback situation is you had Justin Fields and you let him get away, and now you have this kid Bennett, who, all due respect to him, is not a dynamic college quarterback. In any event, let's get to the big game of the day, Chip. The number 1 Clemson Tigers going to South Bend, Indiana, to take on the number 4 Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Right now, Clemson either a 5.5 or 6-point favorite, depending on where you look. No Trevor Lawrence again this week.
Wow.
So we'll see how that true freshman quarterback fares on the road this time. He certainly looked pretty good last week, even though Boston College almost knocked Clemson off. It was by no fault of his, in my opinion, Chip. The last time these teams met, 2018, college football playoff semifinal, Clemson wins the game handily. Your thoughts on this game, Chipper?
It's my first thoughts are it's a sin. It's too bad that Lawrence isn't there. And so I was really concerned. I really thought, what is the number going to be on this game? And it is at Notre Dame, and we were figuring out if Lawrence was playing, we figured they were going to be double digits. And these are from some of the better minds. Anyway, I got anywhere from 10.5 to 13.5, and with the situation, because they just think that this Notre Dame team is a plodding team again. They're big and slow, and Booker has they do have some speed that people may not realize, and their quarterback, he's coming along. It's just I'm wondering about how this freshman quarterback Ross is going to fit in. Notre Dame's 6-0, but they are only 2-4 against the number. And I faded them last week. I had Georgia Tech because I thought they'd be looking ahead to this Clemson game.
That was a great call.
And I didn't think that Clemson would have as big a problem and as big a struggle against Boston College. Well, Boston College played a really good football game, and they could have won that game. And, of course, not having Lawrence in there certainly hurt the Tigers. But they're 7-0, and they're 2-5 against the number. So trying to find value that way with either of these clubs is difficult.
Yeah, it's a tough call right now as we speak. And, first time the Notre Dame's going to be an underdog all season long. The smallest favorite that Clemson was all season long is when they faced Miami at home. They were a 14-point favorite. Again, no Trevor Lawrence, but the true freshman played really good last week against Boston College. Now, that was at home. This is going on the road against the number 4 team in the country. So we'll see how he fares. Okay, we got about a few minutes left here, Chip. Oklahoma State at Kansas State. Kansas State, a 12.5-point home underdog. That really shot out at me. Oklahoma State, again, one of those games last week. You had Texas, and that was a great play because that was an unranked Texas team going on the road against a number 6 ranked team in Oklahoma State. And Oklahoma State was only a 3.5-point home favorite, which means if that game was in Austin, Texas would have been the favorite as an unranked team for a number 6 team. Just goes to show you exactly what Chipper said. Trust the odds makers over the pollsters. What's your early thoughts on this game, Chipper?
Well, we actually had winners on both sides last week because Kansas State went to West Virginia, and I know you had West Virginia as one of your top plays. And again, You had an unranked team, West Virginia, favored over a ranked team. We both came up with the winners. This is going to make this, because we both had the winners against these sides last week, it sort of makes this, to me, as a draw, or it's more difficult to get a beat on it. But the problem here for me is the Wildcats have wins over Texas and Oklahoma. And now, what kind of a dog are we making Kansas State here?
12 and a half.
Home?
Keep in mind their senior quarterback, Skylar Howard, out for the year. The truth in there right now.
I would make tough game. With that line being that high, I think the favorite might be good, but this K-State team, Ross, has a history of coming up big when they're getting points, and when you don't think they have anybody.
When you they bring
you bring a wide receiver in to play quarterback, and he runs for 130 yards. I mean, this team has done this to us over the years. I mean, I think every bowl game that they've made it to, they've had to have some offspring guy quarterbacking, and they'd run and who knows what, they'd run the quarterback draw. Yeah. It's a tough call. It's a very tough call.
Very well coached team. Lacking in talent and speed, but not in heart and character.
Absolutely.
West Virginia at Texas, Chipper. West Virginia coming off that big win, as we alluded to, against then number 16 Kansas State. The Texas Longhorns coming off, I guess you can call it an upset, at number 6 Oklahoma State. Right now, Texas is just a 6.5-point home favorite in this game. Again, the away teams, the last 4 meetings in this series, 4-0 straight up and against the spread. Just figured I'd throw that in there. I'm not a big trend guy, but, recent trends. Anyway, what's your thoughts on this contest here, Chipper, in the Big 12?
Well, here we have this Texas team. You call it an upset. They had